Nobody expected to wake up to news like this. Julia and Brandon, famous faces from reality TV, have been yanked out of their usual swirl of controversy and dumped into every parent's nightmare, sitting powerless while their only child fights for his life in a hospital room lit by monitors instead of hope. One minute it's playful baby photos on social media, the next it's frantic updates and whispers of critical condition, echoing across the fanbase. All those petty online arguments about Julia's choices, Brandon's family drama, even those old cheating rumors that fueled thousands of comments, gone in an instant. When you walk into a pediatric ICU with your baby in your arms, cameras don't matter. Instagram likes don't matter, and the last thing you're thinking about is whether a storyline will trend on Reddit. Picture this. Julia's hands shaking as she texts with one hand and clutches a hospital ID with the other, mascara smudged, voice barely a whisper, asking doctors questions she never wanted to learn how to ask. Brandon pacing the hallway, face pale as a ghost, replaying every decision from last week's first cough to this terrifying morning, hoping every new nurse walking by will bring something other than another round of bad news. And behind those hospital doors, their little boy, the miracle baby everyone thought they'd never have, is now at the center of a battle that makes every past fight and late-night argument look irrelevant. Fans who love to pick sides are holding their breath, scrolling for any sign of improvement. But here's where it punches you in the gut. The real story is still locked behind strict hospital doors. Rumors are flying. Was it a simple bug that spiraled out of control? Did the doctors catch the problem too late? What we do know is that survival feels suddenly more suspenseful than any cliffhanger the network could script, and when a couple who once fought on TV over chores and trust are now gripping each other's hands through fear, well, nobody's judging anymore. The next update could flip everything we thought we understood about this family. Nothing that came before could have prepared them, or us, for the next shock waiting behind that closed pediatric ward. It wasn't so long ago that Julia and Brandon looked almost unrecognizable from the haunted, anxious parents they are right now. Go back a couple of weeks, and you'd have found them leaning into domestic bliss on Instagram, sharing baby Damon's first giggles, making corny jokes about sleep deprivation, and trying to convince their followers that yes, new parenthood was chaos, but also the best kind of messy. After everything, those headline-making family confrontations, the famous farm drama, and decades' worth of in-law complaints squished into a single reality show season, you'd think they would never find their rhythm. Yet there they were, posing for sleepy family selfies, letting the world believe that maybe the script had finally flipped in their favor. People joked in the comments about Julia's all-in approach to parenting, calling her the CEO of baby-proofing and the queen of overpacking the diaper bag. Brandon played along, still as awkward as ever when forced to emote on camera, but even he couldn't fake the proud dad smile plastered across his face. For once, watchers could agree. The endless nitpicking and old grudges were shrinking in the rearview, replaced with baby updates, awkward dancing in the kitchen, and the rarest thing of all in reality TV, actual joy. Nobody seemed to miss Ron and Betty's surveillance state parenting advice, or the parade of cousin cameos complaining about chores. Peace had settled over their household, or so it seemed. Then, as these stories always do, trouble crept in wearing the most ordinary disguise. It all started with one tiny cough. Not a dramatic choking fit or a late-night rush to the ER, just a soft little sound that even the pediatrician said was nothing to panic over. Julia, who everyone knows will Google symptoms until 2 a.m., if you let her, kept one eye on Damon and the other on her phone, chasing down every terrible possibility, but she convinced herself, and the fans, this would be a 2-day inconvenience. Brandon joked about investing in bulk tissues. The timeline was business as usual, with Julia documenting sleepless nights and fans trading home remedy tips in the comments, nobody realizing that a storm was slowly taking shape behind those everyday moments. But the illness ignored their optimism. By midweek, baby Damon's mood started to change. Less giggling, more fussing, not wanting to eat. Nights spent with Brandon walking circles around the nursery while Julia hovered with a thermometer, determined not to overreact. Even now, you could still feel the echo of their old dynamic, the push and pull of Julia's high-alert energy and Brandon's stubborn reassurances. People online wondered if they were projecting their own anxieties onto a healthy child, the way new parents often do. Everyone's been there, right? Watching a little one breathe in their sleep, hoping, no, willing, them to wake up smiling in the morning. That feeling, that razor-thin hope, is so familiar it hurts. And then everything started to tilt. One night, the fever shot up, burning away the last layer of denial. Damon's cries went from tired whimpers to frantic gasps, his breathing shallow enough to send panic spiking through the house. Julia and Brandon traded those long, wordless looks only parents know, the ones that ask if it's time to stop pretending it's all fine and run for help. They didn't need an answer. Julia packed a bag with trembling hands, Brandon scooped up Damon, and before dawn their car screeched to a hospital curb. No show producers, no Instagram posts, no time for nerves. Only flashing lights and medical forms that suddenly made every family feud seem embarrassingly small. The clock started ticking in that moment. Nobody who's watched this couple for years could have predicted how fast normal would turn into emergency. Right then, all the noise faded, and the true story began. A baby's life weighed against all their old worries, while the machines in the pediatric ward replaced every other sound. Sitting in a sterile waiting room, watching a monitor pulse red, Julia feels every memory sharpen into something painful. This isn't the reunion she'd planned, the one where her parents would finally see her as the girl who conquered America, new baby in tow. Now, she's hunched over in a hospital chair while Brandon scrolls through updates from doctors like he's about to fail a test he never signed up for. Those years of fighting about boundaries, country homes, and in-law drama seem laughable under these fluorescent lights. It's not just nerves, there's guilt, too. Who could blame her for replaying every moment she snapped at Brandon for not standing up to his mother, or every time he accused her of not appreciating how hard he worked to get her to the States? Their old conflicts, once so loud, now hover in the room, wordless but heavy. Julia grew up believing that surviving meant being tough, pushing through, never falling apart, even when her marriage was a minefield of secrets and almost divorces. But no amount of Russian resolve is helping right now. The only thing she can do is count the seconds, watch the doctors work, pray. Brandon, for all his past flakiness, won't leave Julia's side, holding his breath every time a new specialist appears. When the nurse wheels in an oxygen machine and the doctor leans in with that flat, careful voice meant for breaking news gently, it feels like their universe is shrinking by the second. If you watch their wedding episode, you remember the endless drama over family speeches and who would babysit the goats, not exactly training for this kind of fight. Fans are reeling, too. The Team Julia crowd, who once roasted Brandon's mom for being too controlling, now rallies behind Julia, flooding the comments with crying emojis and prayers, while Brandon's defenders dig up clips to prove he was always a loving guy at heart. Social media blows up with old screenshots and TikToks, some sympathetic, some using memes of Betty peering over her glasses, this time with worry instead of disdain. The internet's never felt so united, even if only for a few hours. Hospital policy leaves Julia and Brandon in a holding pattern, fighting for scraps of information. Damon is whisked for scans, blood work, x-rays, each test a new chapter of anxiety. He needs every ounce of support, the pediatrician warns, careful not to promise anything. For Julia, that translates into restless pacing, texting her mother across continents, and whispering promises she can't keep to a baby too tired to listen. Brandon chews his thumbnail down to the quick, half-listening as Julia rattles off symptoms and timelines, doubt written across his face that he'll ever get to take his son home. In these moments, everything old resurfaces. The car keys incident. Remember when Brandon gave copies to his parents behind Julia's back? That felt like the end of the world at the time. Julia's teary confession on The Last Resort, where she admitted to slipping up in Russia before the visa even got approved, another trauma they thought they'd buried. Even the silent battles over whether their son should grow up more American or Russian now seem a little ridiculous. Still, every unresolved hurt bubbles up now, each accusation feeding the fear that love alone might not be enough to get through this. Yet it's not all gloom. There are moments when Julia cracks a joke about Brandon's stubbornness, or when Brandon, shaking with adrenaline, promises to buy all the baby toys on Amazon if Damon pulls through. Nurses and doctors become the new supporting cast, talking in clipped, urgent tones while the couple hangs on every word. Online, the commentary brings a new flavor. Some fans argue that facing real trouble finally forced the pair to stop sniping and start acting like a team. Others voice worry that all their past drama will snap back like a rubber band when things calm down, exposing old weaknesses right when unity is needed most. One wave of hope comes late in the night, when Damon's fever dips for the first time in days. Julia allows herself half a smile, snapping a photo she doesn't post, holding Brandon's hand in a silence that feels almost peaceful. Then, a monitor beeps, and suddenly doctors rush back in, resetting the room to maximum tension. His oxygen is dropping, a nurse says, her voice clipped with urgency, and the reality that no one here controls the narrative punches through the fog. Outside, fans stalk every update, speculating on mystery diagnoses and hidden truths, while gossip channels scramble for any exclusive. But the real drama isn't in the hashtags or comments anymore. It's in this little room where every breath is a coin flip, every hour stretching for years. If Damon makes it, it won't be because his parents finally got their story straight, but because sometimes heartbreak and hope exist in the same hand, whether you've got 1 million followers or none at all. Everything now depends on what those red and blue hospital lights say next. Even the doctors can't promise a happy ending, and Julia and Brandon are left with only faith, fear, and a night that refuses to end. Social media lit up the second word broke about Damon's condition. Every corner of Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram had something to say, and it wasn't just fans gossiping for fun anymore. People who never followed Julia and Brandon's drama were suddenly glued to updates, sharing home remedies, emotional tributes, and wild theories about what happened in that hospital room. The same subreddits that once roasted Julia for overposting now flooded her with messages of support, while longtime critics struggled to find anything snarky to say. Even meme accounts took a break from their usual roasting sessions to post prayers and hopeful emojis, like the internet itself decided, for once, to skip the punchline and root for a family that's been through enough.
TikTok was especially raw.
Clips of Julia's past breakdowns and Brandon's more awkward TV moments popped up side by side with tributes and fast-cut news montages. Users stitched together old arguments, like the fight about moving to the farm or Julia's confession on the last resort, casting new meaning in the light of a parent's worst nightmare. You could watch the tone shift by the hour. Arguments turned to empathy, hashtags like Pray for Damon picking up steam, and fans swapped stories of their own children's fevers and sleepless nights, blurring the line between reality TV and actual reality. But the questions kept coming. There was genuine debate. Should we still grill Julia for past mistakes now that she's sitting in a hospital, completely shattered? Does a crisis like this give everyone a reset, or will those old wounds resurface the second things calm down? People wondered aloud if this was the kind of test that either solidifies a marriage or exposes the cracks for good. The comment sections filled up with answers, some forgiving every stumble for the sake of sympathy, others hesitant, remembering that pain doesn't erase old grudges overnight. One viral thread asked, if your partner hurt you before, would an emergency like this make you forget, or would it push you further apart? One top comment, with thousands of likes, simply read, judgment feels small when you're praying for a baby you've never met. That kind of honesty echoed all across social media, like everyone secretly knew what it was like to stop fighting the small stuff when real life gets big. Yet a few accounts kept the skepticism going, spelling out how some traumas don't just disappear when the cameras are off, especially when the entire world is watching. Instagram, usually the place for staged perfection, became a digital vigil. Every time Julia or Brandon posted a story or left a single emoji, the speculation hit fever pitch. Did Julia's latest tearful selfie mean things had taken a turn for the worse? Or was it the sleepless ache of waiting for news? Some fans started sleuthing over past posts, looking for missed clues in baby Damon's older pictures, zooming in, leaving worried comments, trading screenshots like detectives. It got to the point where even uninvolved fans started weighing in, asking the real questions. Was this the wake-up call both of them needed to rebuild? Or is this just opening old scars under the worst kind of spotlight? Naturally, plenty of people had advice. Some offered tough love, warning not to sweep everything under the rug just because medical crisis hit. Others typed out long, heartfelt encouragements, reminding Julia and Brandon that no one's perfect and the only thing that matters is getting their son through the night. The difference now was that every message came from a mix of strangers and supporters. What started as a TV spectacle had turned into something more human, and you could almost sense the collective intake of breath as the next update loomed. All that empathy might sound overwhelming, but for once, you could see how quickly fans were willing to let go of old judgments in the face of real pain. Even when debates got heated, nobody forgot what was at stake. The only thing more intense than the flood of emotional comments was the suspense waiting for real news. Everyone scanning for a sign, any sign, that this story would have a happy turn. Then, out of nowhere, Julia goes silent. Not a single post for hours. Instantly, rumors swirl. Did something happen? Has there been a setback? Or is it just exhaustion? New whispers start up. Some say another family member has flown in. Others claim there's tension with in-laws boiling over behind the hospital curtain. The audience leans forward in their seats, holding their breath for news. Just when the internet thinks it understands what's happening, everything shakes again. A cryptic message hints at a development inside those hospital walls, something nobody's talking about yet, and the next turn could shatter any sense of calm. Every minute in that hospital stretches out, the kind that pulls a day into something that feels endless. Julia stares at the walls, replaying everything that brought her here. The silence is thick, not the kind you escape with a swipe on your phone. It's the kind that lets doubt creep in. She once believed the right playlist or perfect outfit could shift her world. Now everything she cares about lies hooked to machines, and suddenly, every old Instagram filter feels meaningless. Brandon tries to keep busy. He jumps between vending machines, makes awkward dad jokes to soften Julia's nerves, and Googles miracle recoveries like it'll change the odds. Their marriage has always been a showstopper. Dramatic confessions, storming out of therapy, angry parents cropping up in every major scene. But none of those blow-ups prepared them for a night where a doctor's frown holds more power than any angry DM. Nothing about this crisis plays out like a TV plot. This is not a reunion special. There are no retakes, no director yelling cut when someone ugly cries. The pain is messy, the fear constant. Julia glances at Brandon, still angry about past betrayals, but the fight dissolves when she remembers his arms shaking as he carried their child across a parking lot at 3 a.m. You could see it on his face. He'd trade every freedom he fought for to change places with Damon. No questions asked. All the old friction bubbles up under pressure. The truth is, they were never the fairy tale couple TLC wanted. But real love never is, especially when it's tested by things you can't fix with a text or a grand gesture. You feel it, that brutal calculus happening in Julia's mind. Has she lost too much already? Or does this trial burn off everything extra, leaving only what's real? She thinks of Simba, the dog she lost, the one she called her first son. For a moment, grief swirls with fear and a sense of cosmic unfairness. All she can do is circle back to memories of happiness, tiny flashes between the public fights and personal disasters. If Damon pulls through, she promises herself, nothing will ever look the same. Brandon, caught between wanting to comfort Julia and wanting to scream, battles his own mess of feelings. He thinks about every hard choice, every time he let his parents back into the house, every time he failed to defend Julia from trolls or his own family. Now he wonders if any of it mattered, or if it simply wore down their trust, grain by grain, until it felt impossible to rebuild. The prospect of starting over is terrifying, but the alternative, facing this alone, hits even harder. Time drags, and small things become lifelines. A nurse's smile, the relief of a text from a friend 3 states away, the familiar taste of bad hospital coffee. They talk, sometimes in half-finished sentences, circling around the real questions. Can they get past the pain? Will this bind them together? Or will they find themselves shattered, too tired to pick up the pieces again? You can almost hear the cynics rolling their eyes, tweeting about trauma bonding. But people who've lived through loss know better. Crisis can either fix cracks or blow them wide open. No one watching can predict which side these two will land on, least of all themselves. Meanwhile, fans spin fresh theories about what comes next for the couple. Will Julia use this ordeal to launch a new influencer campaign for medical charities? Or will she walk away from the spotlight for good? Will Brandon finally stand up to his family? And was that mysterious arrival in the hospital actually Betty, here to stir things up? There's talk of a tell-all interview brewing, and a few tabloid pages hint at divorce rumors intensifying behind closed doors. In these quiet hours, they find moments to laugh. The vending machine eats Brandon's dollar 6 times, and he launches into a full-on dramatic rant, mumbling about hospital conspiracies and snack bandits. Julia snaps a photo, later promising to post it with a caption, "When life gives you lemons, try to get chips." It's a reminder that humor survives even in bleak places, and sometimes sarcasm is the only shield left. They cling to these bright spots, using levity the way only people who have cried together can. Then, the tension spikes again. Doctors return with new updates. Damon's test results are inconclusive, but there may have been subtle changes in oxygen levels. No one says improvement, but no one says decline, and every shadow in the hallway feels both threatening and full of promise. The couple faces another night of uncertainty. The what-if questions take over. What if their child needs long-term care? What if the relationship that survived international moves and public infidelity can't survive this? Suddenly, another ripple hits. The rumors about a family arrival are true. Ron and Betty have shown up at the hospital. Old wounds reopen. Julia's wary, Brandon stiffens, and, for a moment, everything feels impossible. Forgiveness, compromise, even hope. There's no dramatic outburst, just tension so thick it coats the air. Everyone's exhausted, scared, and unwilling to say what they're thinking. What happens now? Will old power struggles steal focus again, or has real pain taught them to step back? Will they finally put boundaries in place, or is a whole new crisis about to begin right in the waiting room? Somewhere, Julia's phone buzzes, a DM from a stranger, urging her to trust her instincts, to remember that family can mean both comfort and chaos. You get the feeling she's reading these words more than once, letting them fill the space her own mind can't reach right now. She looks at Brandon, who squeezes her hand even tighter. Another medical alert sounds from down the hall. The world narrows. Every face in the waiting room turns to see which family is about to get news, good or bad. Even the doctors seem hesitant, the air thick with questions too big to answer. Is this a turning point, or only another trial on a never-ending climb? No one, not even Julia and Brandon, can say for sure. With the stage set for another heartbreak or a hard-won miracle, everyone is bracing for either the moment everything gets better or the one that will test them all beyond what they thought they could handle. Day after day, the routine inside that hospital room blurs into something that barely feels real anymore. Julia moves between exhaustion and adrenaline, her mind looping over the start of all this, how quickly their sense of safety disappeared, replaced by beeping machines and hurried explanations about blood work and breathing rates. She gets caught up in long pauses, staring at Damon's tiny chest rising and falling, counting each breath like it's the answer to every question she never thought she'd have to ask. Time works differently when you're waiting for news that might change your life. 1 minute stretches forever, and then an entire day vanishes in a cloud of fatigue and nerves. The outside world begins to shrink to the size of this one, cold, blue-lit room. Messages pile up on Julia's phone, some from friends and family, others from strangers around the world. Every text or DM brings a rush of comfort followed by more anxiety. While it helps to read messages of hope, it hurts to explain that nothing's changed, at least not yet. For every sweet photo of Damon they used to share with thousands, there are only short, cryptic hospital updates now. Brandon doesn't try to hide how worried he is anymore. There's no room for pride. He stands by the window and watches the sky shift from day to night, lost in the routine of hoping for the right knock on the door. Hours go by with no news, and each time a nurse walks in, both parents shoot to their feet, hearts racing with real dread. The smallest change, a shift in the numbers on the monitors, a quiet word from a doctor, lands like a tidal wave. Neither of them can sleep for more than a few minutes at a time. Every quiet hour is stuffed with fears they don't always say out loud. Sometimes, Julia thinks about all the years she spent resentful of Brandon's family. But now, with Ron and Betty camped out a few rooms away, those old wounds feel different. Not smaller, nothing shrinks inside a hospital. Everything just rearranges, but suddenly, the point of every old argument looks pointless. She wonders what it costs people to keep holding grudges when everything important could be lost in a heartbeat. Maybe forgiveness looks different in the harsh light of real crisis. Sometimes it's not about excusing anyone, just about not letting the past steal the last ounce of strength you have left. Fans, of course, are watching all of it. Some go deep into speculation mode, spinning wild stories about Julia's childhood or Brandon's secret thoughts, while others just post candle emojis and hold space for the silent suffering. Even the most jaded followers seem to acknowledge, in their own way, that real pain has a way of resetting the scoreboards. Suddenly, the stories everyone thought they were following start to fall apart at the edges. This isn't a plot twist written by producers. Even the biggest scandals from TV look small compared to a mother whispering to her sick child in the dark. There are moments, though, where the past comes roaring back. Late at night, Julia hears whisper fights in the hallway, her in-laws frustrated with hospital policy, new complaints simmering through the walls. She knows the risk. Stress and grief have a way of picking at the weakest seams between people. Brandon slips out for coffee and comes back with tight shoulders, his mood worn raw from another close encounter with his parents. Each time, Julia has to decide, does she pick a fight or pick a side? The unspoken truce is fragile, but she hangs on. For Damon. For herself. Between these flickers of hope and despair, there's a new kind of closeness that's almost uncomfortable in its intensity. Julia sits with Brandon, knees pressed together, and asks questions she probably wouldn't have said out loud during happier days. She talks about the baby shoes she bought online even before her pregnancy test turned positive. Brandon admits he hated the farm more than he ever let on, but kept quiet, thinking it was the only way to hold the family together. There's an honesty here, stripped of judgment, that could never have survived a reunion episode or public forum. They're not the couple fans debated about for hours online. They aren't even the same people who walked into this hospital. Under this pressure, they are closer to strangers again, two scared parents stripped down to the basics, wondering if love is enough. For some, watching these emotional breakdowns feels almost too personal. But maybe that's why so many tune in, night after night. It's not about the perfect family or the cinematic proposal in Iceland. It's about the reminder that everyone is one phone call away from losing what they love most. Even reality celebrities find themselves helpless in the face of fever charts and whispered doctors' conversations. The comfort comes from seeing real feelings, real reactions, no script, no filters. As days pile up without clear answers, new rumors start buzzing. Viewers whisper that Julia's old friend from Russia may be landing in town soon. Maybe to help. Maybe to stir things up again. The tabloids toss around wild speculation. Will the couple address the cheating scandal publicly now? Or is someone planning to step away from TV entirely? There's also talk of a bombshell interview brewing and quiet hints of a network comeback for the couple, maybe a fresh series or a sit-down special where all these secrets and pain could spill out for the world to judge. For Brandon, the idea of more cameras sounds like disaster. For Julia, it's both an opportunity and a risk, the kind that changes everything if she dares say yes. The night wears on. Nurses come in and out, kind but brisk, and the family keeps their vigil alive. You see a kind of hope that's raw, unfiltered, a mother willing to face her own mistakes, a father steadying himself for whatever news comes next. Messages of love arrive from corners of the world Julia never imagined. Tiny moments of connection flicker, a laugh at a nurse's joke, a memory of Damon's first word, an inside joke swapped over takeout containers balanced on their laps. Even in the worst moments, life refuses to stop surprising them. Brandon eventually leaves the room for a moment of peace, his head bowed as if in prayer. Julia pulls out her phone and scrolls through old videos, her and Damon laughing. That soft baby giggle that once broke through even the toughest day. She sends a short clip to her mom, and the reply comes almost faster than she expects. He's strong. You are too. Don't give up. It hits her harder than she wants to admit. Sometimes, the only comfort is remembering that millions of people, even total strangers, are rooting for a little boy they've never met. But the reality is that not every story gets the ending it deserves. The machines keep beeping, the blood tests keep coming back with complicated results, and the timeline is out of everyone's control. This isn't the chapter anyone asked for. There's no secret solution, no perfect advice. Only the slow march of hours, the willingness to wait, to hope, and to hold on as tightly as possible. That truth lingers in every corner of the hospital. Sometimes survival isn't about winning or losing, or about whose fault it was last season. It's about making it to the next day, hand in hand, through whatever comes. For Julia and Brandon, the hardest part now isn't fighting each other, or the hospital, or even the rumors. It's waiting for the next knock at the door, the moment when someone finally says the words they've been desperate to hear. Outside, fans remain glued to their screens, speculating about every update, every missing social media post, every glimpse from the hospital window. Many hold their breath for an announcement. Maybe an interview, maybe a family statement, or maybe a new plot twist no one saw coming. Some even wonder if the next chapter will bring Julia and Brandon back in front of the cameras, sharing everything they learned the hard way, changing the script from tragedy to something fiercer, something built to last. As the clock ticks past another midnight, hope feels stubborn and sharp. The family's journey isn't over, and neither is the world's obsession with their every move. Only one thing is certain. The next news, whether relief or heartbreak, will make every old story look small by comparison. If you think you know what happens when reality TV turns real, wait for what's coming next, because the next shock may be the one that finally changes everything.